Welcome to the American Made Podcast today with your hosts, Jordan,
And Matt,
and today we're going to be talking about the two party system and the electoral college versus popular vote. So, I guess let's go straight in. So, so the two party system, um, I just see a basic problem with it. So, first, let's just go over what it is. So, in the United States, there's two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. And then basically there's only these two that get elected basically. If you want to further that at all, Matt.
yes, and that's not saying that Democrats and Republicans can only be the ones elected, because there have been multiple times where the third party candidates, including like the Libertarians or the Green Party, they have come close, but none have actually been elected yet. Because I know um, in the recent, not recent elections, but in past elections, there have been, some third-party candidates too. I think the most I've seen has been like 5 states in total have gotten their vote, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah. So that moves into a problem, as in like it's just a lot less likely for a third party candidate to get
Uh,
elected. So I'm gonna just say the basic problems and then we can explore those. So I have people vote for the party instead of their own personal policies that they believe in.
hmm
Um, then that pushes into they don't follow the policies, they follow the party instead, and that limits who you can vote for. As in, if you vote for a third party candidate, most likely they're not going to be elected compared to a Republican or Democrat.
hmm Yeah. Um, I do think that with the limiting votes and stuff like that, I do understand that, but if say our country did move to more of like a multi-party system, like a lot of countries in Europe do currently have, I could see a lot of problems, coming from that, because just so many parties, because so many people, believe in certain things, and there'll be like, I could see certain parties, popping up that only support like only deal with like gun stuff, like gun control or something like that, and that's their main ticket issue. That's their only thing, because they'll have a couple people that vote for them, and I could just see that going for basically every issue.
Yeah, definitely. So there are like problems with like making the solution, which we're gonna dive into, but it's just hard to like fix it because there's no like perfect solution. So, solution wise, we have a three party system. So, like, we have the Republicans, the Democrats, and then plus one, most likely, like, in the center of both of them. So, we'll just go by, like, each solution. So, like, this solution, I think, would be really good, in a sense that it gets, a third person, able to be elected, which gives a higher chance of a third party election, which fits as that. And then on top of that, just in general, it gives more of like, oh, I don't fit with either of the two main parties, so we have this third party that I fit into, which would really help.
Well, I would definitely say that we kind of have, some version of that now. So are you trying to say like you want to try to strengthen the third party candidates we have, like the Green Party, we want to strengthen that party, or the Libertarians, we want to strengthen that party.
Yeah, well, like basically, there's two main ones, and then there's a couple that are like kind of popular that are like in the medium level. So like maybe strengthen one of those, so like we have like a better chance of having more people have their voices be heard.
Uh-huh. And my only thing is just like who would decide what party would get strengthened
Yeah, that see
from that.
again that there's problems with the solutions.
Uh-huh.
So
Because I kind of see it as, the Republicans and Democrats, they all have their sides, but they're no like one ticket issue,
yeah,
if that's a good way to put it. Like the Republicans and Democrats, they both have their sides slash opinions on things, and it can appeal to a lot of people. when compared to like the Green Party itself is really, more environmentalist. That's their big ticket item
Yeah.
that they mostly deal with. So I would say we would have to probably try to get a party that is kind of like the Republicans and Democrats, that they don't have one, big ticket issue, but they have multiple, opinions on all of these stuff, and they're well informed and stuff like that.
Yeah,
To,
definitely.
yeah, to appeal to all these, how you were putting these people more in the middle, because as we can definitely see that the Republican Party's definitely moving towards, more right leaning, more conservative, while the Democratic Party is moving more left, more towards, more liberal leanings.
Yeah. So the second solution I have is the political based voting. So it basically eliminates all parties. And then you're just based off like I like this one candidate because of he supports these policies that I believe in. So
That's interesting. Yeah.
like the pros are that it's more policy based, but the cons with that is that most, I wouldn't say most, some people aren't completely educated on every single policy that they believe in, or at least not all policies, I would say. So I think as a whole, we need to push like learning more and try to be lifelong learners. And
Hmm.
also with that, it eliminates parties in general, which is also a problem because I feel like parties give like a voice to a majority of people, so that really helps.
Yeah, I would kind of agree that I don't think really that the education standpoint on a lot of these topics, that I could see that, playing a decent role, but I feel like most people, they just really don't have enough time in the day, because most of these middle class, most of the voters are, working, they're trying to, they're working every day, they have kids, stuff like that, and, sometimes it just does get hard to, try to balance that out, and, you having to, research all of these, uh, political candidates and what they believe in, when more or less you can just, with a two-party system, you can say, "Oh, Republican, Democrat. Okay, so this is more, the Republicans are the people, or the side that I most agree with, so then I can, look into these Republican candidates."
It narrows down the pool
Yeah, it gives them a
of
pathway.
candidates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the third one would be just add a third candidate. So right now we have like two major candidates of Republican and Democrat. So we add one more, which that also ties in with the first one with the third party. So it's just all in general, just a third candidate, third party. So
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that's interesting, yeah. Because as you were saying, that our real problem is that a lot of people, they vote on party, not policy. And that's what we should always be trying to vote on: policy, not party, because, you should try to vote. It's a little, self-centered, but you should always try to, I see it as, you should always try to vote what in your best interests
yeah,
and all this stuff.
I mean the two party system is flawed in that sense
Oh yes,
because
I definitely say that. I could also argue that all party systems are flawed. Like,
oh,
no party
obviously,
system's flawed. Everything has their flaws.
yeah. And then
But
the two party system in general is like a tricycle with two wheels. It just doesn't make sense.
um, yeah, I would definitely say that, with more education, I'd probably say, like, how do you think to get more education? Like, would you say that, high schools should be, going more in depth into, policies and stuff like that? Or do you think, it should be the person who should take the time out of their day to look into the stuff?
I feel like a combination of both, honestly. Like, I think there should be classes that high schools can implement that would, like, help students find, like, um, I don't know how to put it, like, find credible sources. Like, I know
Uh,
English class and stuff like that, when you do a research paper, paper, we learn that. So I feel like we just need to implement that more into like the students.
I
Um,
could see also having like I would also agree with this that how a lot of people are saying that high schools should have like a U.S. civics class, which just teaches everybody about the U.S. history and stuff like that, and what makes America great, and having that as a graduation requirement. I think that would truly actually help people vote and stuff like that,
oh, definitely.
because they can actually see what our or they can attempt to see what our founding fathers what their reasoning behind this and stuff like that, with like the Constitution, the Electoral College, stuff like that. Like, where do they get their rights and stuff like that? I would totally agree with making that a graduation requirement, because like you've probably seen the videos where these people would go up with like cameras, mics, and they go onto like the beach or something like that, or in New York City, and they would um ask these random strangers really basic and easy questions that you should expect most people to know, like, oh, who's the current vice president of the United States, or how many seats are in the Senate, something that most people should know, if not all people should know.
Oh yeah.
And these people are saying random stuff that makes absolutely no sense.
I mean, this may go a little bit like more back in time, but the Mental Samurai episode that I personally watched yesterday, where the person got stuck on how many colonies the United States had, which
Hmm.
was 13, but that's what he got stuck on him on all the questions, which was absolutely insane.
Hmm. And I just kind of feel like that, not even just with the US and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of Americans and a lot of people in general, you know, don't stay up to current events at all. And current events ranging from, local stuff, or even US news, or even the world news, because I know you could take, most people could take like those online tests where like it's like a current event test, like to show how up to date you are on current events. And like most people, I'm pretty sure like the average score was like out of 10 was like a 4, a 3 or 4, which was actually insane.
Yeah. I mean, with that, I think people should look into multiple like news sources so they don't get one bias,
Oh, definitely,
like
definitely.
one side of the coin.
That's one problem that could also be teached in class, trying to split fact from bias and stuff like that, and how to tell like if a media how to tell how much bias a media source has and stuff like that, because there's each different news source has their own bias. Like, you can say Fox News, they have more of a right leaning bias, while CNN, MSNBC, stuff like that has a more left leaning bias.
Yeah,
And most people, they kind of put on their blinders in a sense, and they just don't look at any other side.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um,
Hmm.
so to ask a few questions, so we have, um, are we people who don't use the mind of our own? Are we the people who just bandwagon without thinking? Or are we the people who believe in our own policies? So that basically ties in with the two-party system. With the two first questions, you most likely will answer no, and then the third question yes. But that's why we need to do based on policy, not party.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I've just, it's just kind of hard, you know, to see all these things with the two-party systems, because we all know, yes, they have its strength and its weaknesses, but I feel like we kind of have to look how the two-party is like system is kind of implemented with our election process, because our election process is really specifically tied into the um two-party system, and it really works well with it. And like, if you implement another party, or multiple parties in this case, you start to really mess things up, I would say.
Oh, definitely. So that's just what we just need to factor in all of these factors, and then maybe change something or just try to improve upon the two-party system.
Uh-huh. But
So yeah.
yeah, go. Sorry, sorry.
So we can basically just end this topic as in I just personally think the two-party system is flawed, and we
Uh-huh.
can move on to the second topic, which
Uh-huh.
is electoral college versus popular vote.
All right. So kind of going off your topic, I definitely say with like how I said before, the electoral college mainly is and how we, not nominate, but like elect a president and stuff like that is very critical with the two-party system because with the electoral college, you have to get to the 270 mark for the electoral votes. And if we start adding, another party, if we start to add like another party or two or three or four or five and we get to like I don't know nine parties, that margin is going to be so it's just going to be split and no one's going to get to 270.
Yeah.
And then after that you go to what most people probably didn't know is if no 270 is not reached, you actually go to a house vote where the house votes for the president, each state in the house getting one electoral vote, in this sense electoral vote, and whoever can reach the majority, which is I believe 26, yes. Whoever can get the majority will in this case win, and the senate gets to pick the vice president, so they get to they have their own separate voting for vice president as well. But
Okay.
with the electoral college and the popular vote, I really just want to highlight some of the the main benefits and weaknesses of both. So for the electoral college, I find a lot of benefits are representation among states, because that was a key thing the founding fathers relied on heavily. That was a main topic with states' rights in the constitutional convention, and they just wanted to make sure that each state got fair representation. So the larger states, like at that time was like Virginia, Pennsylvania, didn't have so much more power than the smaller states, which was like Delaware, Rhode Island, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And some of the weaknesses, you hear it a lot after a really close election, is that the electoral college doesn't is my vote really worth it? A lot of people say, because like in this past election, we all know Trump won the election. He got over 270 electoral votes. I think he actually got over 300, if I'm not incorrect. And but Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote by there were some disputed numbers, but like I think right around like 500,000, a little bit less, a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of people are saying like, "Oh, my vote wasn't worth it," like this, because I voted for Hillary in Texas. My vote, didn't matter. Um, and I find that a little strange, because your vote matters in your state, if you know what I mean. Each state has most states, sorry, have a direct popular vote, excluding Maine, and I think it is, oh dang, can't remember the other one. It might be Maine and Nebraska have more of a proportional representation,
Yeah.
but most states have like a winner take all system, or like the direct popular vote, where the candidate, whoever gets the most votes in that state, will take the whole state's electoral votes. And with Maine and Nebraska, uh, the the electoral votes are more split up into oh, they're split up among the candidates.
Yeah.
And when comparing like that to the popular vote system that they want to, because we've had all these Democratic nominees, because we know the Democratic primaries are soon, that most of the Democratic nominees are, calling for the abolishment of the Electoral College and a replacement for it, a direct popular vote. And I'd probably say my counter to that is, some of the weaknesses, because when we look at the benefits and weakness of the popular vote, the the benefits and weaknesses are there. There's more weaknesses than benefits in this case when comparing to the electoral college, because yes, with the direct popular vote, yes, all all votes matter in the sense, unless you vote for a third party.
Yeah.
um, but they have a lot of weaknesses, and I think like most of the weaknesses can be highlighted like with like a simple question like, would you like to be ruled by a tyrannical majority that have the exact opposite of your beliefs? And I think we all know the answer to that is no, because but in this direct popular vote, we would have, these cities like Philadelphia, Los Angeles, San Diego, New York City, all these cities would basically decide the president for the whole country because there is such a differentiate difference in the population, sorry, among those cities and, states like Kansas or Montana or stuff like that. And what this whole strategy would change. Now instead of, having president, the presidential candidates, trying to get everybody's vote from everywhere, Kansas to New Mexico to Maine, they're only going to these big cities where they know they can get the most votes. And that would just totally decrease, the amount of times the candidates go to, these smaller states like the in the Midwest. And we all know that, in the Midwest, they have a lot of different priorities than people in the big cities. Like in Midwest, they're more, concerned about, agriculture and stuff like that, while people in the big cities are more, focused on a bunch of other different things like gun control or stuff like that. And it's just it just can't. I really don't think it would ever work in this country, um, because it would be basically changing, how the presidential, candidacy would be run. Because I am reading a book currently. It's about the electoral college, and it made a great analogy about if we switch to a direct popular vote, and it would be like in baseball terms, the team with the most wins and stuff like that, they get a breath, they get a chance to go to the World Series. But if we go to the direct popular vote, we would basically be saying, oh, wins don't matter anymore. Now, whoever scores the most runs can go to the World Series. So these teams would change up their whole way of thinking. They're like, oh, let's not try to go for the wins. If we're, playing an easier team, let's try to score as many runs as possible. Because if we do, we can take advantage of that and we can go to the World Series. And I thought that was a perfect analogy for the presidential, how that would change. And yeah, it's just, I find it, just kind of crazy. But do you have any opinions on it?
Yeah. So sorry about the dog in the background. Oh my. Oh no. All right.
It's all
So
right.
I'm gonna try to talk over him. But so the electoral college, I think is really good because it rewards the intelligence of like better candidates that like focus on the states that have more electoral college votes. So I think that's why it's personally better because it rewards the people that are like, all right, I'm gonna focus on these main states that that will give me more electoral college votes instead of like
Uh-huh.
going to every single state and trying to persuade like, okay, I need to get every single large city my vote so the popular vote will make me win.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's more manageable to get like a couple states than a bunch of cities that you have to get.
Uh-huh. And I also feel like another benefit, to the electoral college over the popular vote is that the electoral college, it reduces a lot of fraud and, all this bad stuff that, people who want power will do to get the power. And with the electoral college, you do not know how, a state will affect uh, will affect the primary or the national election, because you'd basically have to predict where you should illegally put these illegal votes. Like, oh, I'm gonna predict that Florida's gonna be a key race, so I'm gonna put all these votes in Florida. When in reality, Florida could have absolutely nothing to do. It could be a total, breeze for the Republican candidate or for the Democratic candidate. But compared to the popular vote, you can, spread them out so far, anywhere, any state, anywhere can have a total effect on the election. And with electoral college, it kind of reduces it, to one or two states where possible, election fraud could have, occurred and stuff like that.
Yeah, which makes it completely impossible to like convey your message of like if you want to convey all of your policies like in person, there's no way you're going to be able to do it in every single city, every single state in the popular vote. It's very unreasonable,
Uh-huh.
which would completely like destroy like voting in general. Compared to the
Hmm.
electoral college, it makes it completely reasonable and rewards people that are smarter on where they go, and it makes it completely like easier, I would say, instead of
And I
impossible.
yeah, I could definitely see like most voters in like the Midwest area become like discouraged voters, because they're like, oh, my vote, really doesn't matter. These cities are just, outweighing my vote. Why should I even vote? Like, it really won't have an impact, because all of these cities with millions upon millions of people in them just going to outnumber me, and my vote's going to do nothing.
Yeah, compared to I personally convey like everyone should vote and have a chance to like vote for who they believe in.
Hmm. And there were like some ways to fix it, because I've seen, with these people that have, tried to come up with better ways, if they've been angry at the electoral college, they've, tried to create, different strategies in, changing the election system. And one of the plans were the bonus plan, where if you would win, if that person wins the not the electoral vote, but the popular votes, because, they have the electoral vote and then the popular vote. If the person wins the popular vote, they get around 102 electoral votes in bonus to what already they have. Sorry. And personally, I find that pretty ridiculous, because 102 electoral votes can totally swing an election. Like, can totally swing an election in the favor of,
Oh
another
yeah,
person.
because I'm pretty sure you said you only need 170, right?
You need 270.
270. So that's still like a decent amount of votes, like in general.
Hmm. And I think it was the 2000s election was like a really, drastic thing, where that if the bonus plan was, put into place, it would have totally swung the election, because I think it was George W. Bush and Al Gore going against each other. The difference in electoral votes was George Bush with 271 and Gore with 266. So it was a very close race in uh, both the popular vote and the electoral vote, and Bush narrowly came on top with the electoral vote, but Gore did take the popular vote. So imagine if we had that bonus plan in, um, Gore would have got 102 electoral votes instantly. Boom, he's the new president.
Yeah, then that's absolutely insane. That would have
Hmm.
changed a lot.
Uh-huh. And the bonus plan, it totally, impacts how, people are running too. If they're like, oh, I can only, I'll campaign in the hard blue, states, or the hard red states, and then I'll move more towards the cities too, so I can also win the popular vote, and I'll be good. instead of going to all the states, some swing states and stuff like that, or other states that are for Republican, other like more blue states, or for Democrats more red states, to try to get their votes too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I that was one of the plans. Like, another plan was pretty interesting. It was basically the district plan, where instead of like by states, it's by districts in the state. So like each district in a state gets a certain amount of electoral votes, and then you have to win it by there. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that
But
actually is
I
pretty interesting.
mhm. But I could definitely see that being, making things a lot more complicated, because
Well, wouldn't
you
that
know,
give larger states more electoral votes?
hmm
So
definitely.
it definitely would have people focus on the larger states then compared to the smaller states.
Yeah, I'd probably say more than, what is already happening, because like smaller states like Rhode Island, Delaware,
Yeah.
don't have as many districts in them, because they're not as big as these other states, which are giant. Um, they're giant states.
Yeah.
And like Pennsylvania itself, we have a decent amount of districts too. So depending on how many electoral votes they give per district or something like that, if they base the electoral votes they give based on the population of that district and such, I think that also impacts it too, because most big cities are either one or two district uh, size cities, and again, like you were saying, those presidential candidates are just going to go straight to those big cities or those big districts to get all their votes.
Yeah. So I don't think there's like a clear like best method. I think the one we
Mhm.
have right now, electoral college wise, my bad, is definitely really good. But if we change the two-party system, we would have to change this, which is already
Mhm.
pretty good.
And I would say, I would say changing or abolishing the electoral college, and even changing, will most likely not happen within the next 10 to 20 years, because the amount of, hard work that side's going to have to do to get a constitutional amendment is incredibly hard. Like, they're going to have to put in so much work to get this passed, and that doesn't even guarantee you get it passed through Congress. You still have to get it ratified by the states, which I'm pretty sure you need a either a 3/4 or a 2/3 majority of the
It's
states.
one of those. I
Yeah,
don't completely remember.
but yeah, it's a constitutional amendment is one of the hardest things to do, if not the hardest thing to do in the U.S. government to date, and that's really how the founders, made it that way, because they saw the Constitution and all the amendments that are currently in it as, you know, the Constitution should be really unchanged unless, something major should be added, and it needs to be very big, because we don't want to be, the Democrats or the Republicans win the House and the Senate and the presidency. The founders just didn't want one party just to be like, oh, we won the majority of something. Let's change up the whole Constitution. Let's go.
Yeah. Which is also pretty smart how they did it. So they
Mm.
don't just change it to help like
And I
themselves.
yeah, and I saw a lot with the Constitutional Convention. A lot of people, thought that the founders really didn't take time on the Electoral College. They thought a lot of people just thought they just, slapped this all together and boom, because they wanted to go home. But no, this was actually like one of the most debated topics in the Constitutional Convention, because, with states' rights and stuff like that, these small states most likely would not have ratified the Constitution if this was not put into place and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, because back then they were afraid of another Candace abusing his power. So that was
Mhm.
like one of the most major things because they want a combination of a large and small government to
Mhm.
balance it out.
And that's the main premise behind like checks and balances in the government, how legislative checks the executive branch, the executive checks the, you know, judicial. They all check. It's just
Yeah.
they all balance each other out, so no one branch is, superior to another. But I definitely thought it was really interesting how like one problem with the electoral college that not a lot of people think of, but this like problem can really occur is, okay, so I'll give you a little scenario, Jordan, and just answer me, what do you think would happen and what your best method would solve this. So we have, say, with Trump, we'll go Trump Hillary. So we'll say Trump wins the election, okay, and after election we're thinking like maybe like um I don't know, maybe like November, I don't know, 20th or something like that. Trump tragically dies. Who's the president?
Wouldn't it go to vice president then? Or are you still talking about the election process?
So we finished the election. Um, we finished like the whole nationwide election and all that stuff, and Trump has reached the 270 mark. Who would become the president?
I personally would say, wouldn't the vice president become it?
You'd
But
think the vice president would come in, but what I thought was interesting was the electoral votes by right around like, in between when the election happens and when the electoral college actually votes on the president. It's not They have not been confirmed as president because the electoral college needs to vote them in to confirm that he's the president.
that's
So I thought that was super interesting. Like, what happens if the president dies or like a terrorist attack kills the president, vice president? Like, what do we do then?
would it go to the second runner up, or would it there's two possibilities. So it completely eliminates like the Republican Trump in this case, and then it would go to the runner up, or would we have like the Republicans vote for a new major nominee, and then have that get voted again, electoral
Hmm.
college? There's the
And
two possibilities.
yeah, I just really thought that was really interesting, and I saw, I can agree on this one, change that should happen is that right after the electoral, the election, the electoral, vote should really be like automated. So like after I believe is the first Tuesday is the in November is always election day. And like on that first like Wednesday, right after, the election day, the electoral votes, I believe should, be counted and voted and all that done like some sort of like automated system. And so we know by like that Thursday of that week, we know who is the president. And if that president dies before they are inaugurated, then that vice president who was elected will become president.
Uh, yeah, I mean that would make sense, but on the other hand, I kind of like how they do it old school, where they count each vote in particular.
Well, my only thing is that the interesting thing about the electoral vote is the electors, they don't actually have to stick to you know who the state actually voted for. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
So if your state, if you are one of the, um, dang it, sorry, one of the, let's go with Kansas, one of the three Kansas electors in this past election, then since Trump won Kansas, all three electors for Kansas should vote for Trump because that is what their state said. But there's no place in the Constitution where the electors have to vote for who that state voted for, which I find really interesting that they didn't actually address this topic. I thought that was really interesting.
yeah.
But and that whole automated thing, drastically reduces, the amount of or the risk associated with doing that old school vote, as you put it.
Yeah.
Uh, but because yeah, there's been documented in elections that people have actually done that. Like it was I think the most recent one was in the 2000 election when a an elector from I think it was from the District of Columbia. I'm not sure though. Actually abstained from the vote, and the District of Columbia voted for Gore, but her vote would not have done anything. Luckily,
Yeah.
because an elector's vote, they could, depending on how close it is, which in all honesty, most elections aren't very close, within like 1 to 2, I would say within 1 to 10 ranges. Not There's hardly any elections that are actually that close, but in that case, the 2000 election, if say, I don't know, like three electors that were supposed to vote for Bush voted for Gore instead, then Gore's your new president, even though Bush originally won, all the electoral votes. He reached 270, and even two electoral votes, since it was the election was 271 to 266. If two electors for that were supposed to vote for Bush, didn't vote at all, then it would have had to go to a contingency election where the House would have to vote, which I thought was really very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, my only thing, yeah. So each thing, they do both have their problems and their weaknesses, but I feel that electoral colleges, their benefits totally outweigh their weaknesses, and their weaknesses are small and minute and really don't happen as often as we think they might. They just really don't. If you look at, all of the election results from our past elections. Uh, and all those benefits, that the electoral college, sorry, has, just totally outweighs all of the popular votes benefits. And in the case of the popular vote, their weaknesses totally outshine the benefits. How I'm seeing it as. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree.
So, do you want to talk about some Democratic nominees now?
Oh yeah. Would you be able to send me a link so I can look at the
Oh, certainly,
electoral count?
certainly, certainly. Well, we can first talk about our boy Andrew Yang, Yang Gang. Let's go.
2020.
Um, I personally I find a lot of his things, insightful. That he's actually talking about, because a lot of people aren't really talking about them in general. Like with automation, no one's really, talking about, how automation is going to impact, America's families in general.
Yeah.
I feel like he's raising some good awareness for that. And so, yeah, we just have like a Rolling Stones article on they rated, each Democratic nominee. So we can just go through them, just see if they should be lower, higher, or and what they believe in and stuff like that. So first one, Bernie Sanders, my main man. Sooner or later, dude, he's gonna be in an old folks home. I'm telling you,
He owns 3 houses. I know that.
he does. He owns 3 houses.
So he might be living in one of those.
I think like his main policy is definitely like free tuition for college, and it sounds good at first, but really it's just that's gonna cost so much, and we spend so much money on other things now that we shouldn't. Like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't spend that money, because I totally agree that college tuition is super high right now, and there needs to be some changes, but I don't think making college tuition free is actually going to solve those issues and stuff like that. If you agree.
I mean, like if you look at just all right, free tuition, it's amazing. Everyone, I wouldn't mind it.
I wouldn't mind it either.
And it would also push people to further education without having the restraints of debt,
Uh-huh.
which would have more people get better jobs, which would in general help the economy. But on the other hand, I'd like to know where the money is coming from.
Uh-huh.
That's like one of the most crucial things. I mean, money is the thing that makes the world go round. Like you you'd have to figure out what he's like taking from, and then how does that affect um the stuff that he's taking from.
Uh-huh.
You need to outweigh the
Yeah,
cost.
because I'm pretty sure like I think I heard a recent number was like in the trillions of dollars, and like, America's already just drastically in debt, and I kind of think we can't really, take on that much more debt. But like he was talking about, increasing taxes on the rich, my main man always says that. Um, but I saw recent, uh, recent studies and stuff like that where the rich are paying a lot in taxes, and even with these new tax cuts that how a lot of Democrats are saying that it was just a tax cut for the rich. Actually, no. The rich are actually paying more in taxes than they previously were, and I do agree with what he's saying that he also wants to tax big businesses, because recent articles from the Washington Post show that Amazon, these multi-billion-dollar companies a year that they're making in revenue, they're paying $0 in tax,
Yeah, it's
which I
absolutely
find
insane.
absolutely insane. So let's go to number two, Kamala Harris. Pretty interesting. She's She has some stuff I would, agree with,
Could
but
you send me a link to the or who
oh,
wrote
I did.
that?
It was it's in the general chat.
Uh, I see it.
Um, I do agree with some of her stuff. Some of her stuff is pretty interesting, but most of the stuff, I kind of, can't get behind. Like I agree, like on the premise, but how it actually be implemented, I don't really agree. Like paying $500 a month for working class families, like it, I agree on the premise, like yes, these people should be getting $500, but who's gonna pay for it? Like, are you gonna increase the middle class's taxes so we can pay for that? And
Well, it says up to, so I think it's gonna be through a threshold of you make this amount of money, this is how much you are gonna get a month to help you.
Mhm.
Which again, like that seems great because that does help the economy flow. Which I think just doing that and making the economy flow may help the government even more. But that's like a over time thing, and a lot of people live in the moment and not like for the future. So
Uh-huh.
based off today's society with living like right now, like living in the
Mhm.
moment, it all these policies that I'm thinking in the future, since that's how I think, it's not how other people think, so it's not going to work out how I'm thinking it personally.
I would definitely say that, like, yeah, that's another thing, they should teach in school is, thinking for the future and saving. Because, if these families would actually use this $500 and, put it towards things so it could, I don't know, gain it interest or on something or stuff like that, where it could, increase over time, that would be good. But most people today, they get $20, they're gonna go spend that $20 today. They're not gonna try to, invest for the future or stuff like that.
Yeah, I think one of the best classes I took in high school probably was personal finance because it really just opens up your mind and really helps for the future. 10 out of
All
10.
right. Yeah. Another one, Beto O'Rourke. He's uh, actually started to run. Uh, he had if most of you people probably don't know him, or you probably do, but because he's really interesting, to say the least. Um, he actually ran a campaign for the Senate seat in Texas against Ted Cruz, and he came actually relatively close because a lot he got donated a lot of money, like up into like the hundreds of millions of dollars to get that seat, and he actually came really close, like closer than any other Democratic nominee, not nominee, but like any Democratic uh, person running for like a Senate seat in Texas have ever come, which I thought was interesting. But I just I can't really see him doing a lot. I I don't think he's a good choice at all.
Oh, definitely. I mean, in a sense, we do have bias since we're mostly right leaning. So that's why we're doing. All right. So I promote policy um over party. So that's why we're going over the Democratic candidates slash nominees. Um, so the right leaning people can look at the opposite, and we can talk about how we view them.
Uh-huh. And I just feel like he has a lot to explain in his past and stuff like that. Because I'd recently read an article where Beto actually, he was arrested a lot of times for DUI and stuff like that. And driving under the influence, all that stuff, and he actually got into accidents and stuff like that,
Yeah,
which I thought was
he did a signature apology, and he called it a terrible mistake that he got arrested for drunk driving at age 26.
yeah. And yeah, I know like one of his main policy things is he's against the wall. Um, which personally I support the wall fully. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's I his main thing, him being from, around Texas and stuff like that, is, immigration and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's centered around immigration reform, it says, and it's based on respect. So,
Oh, dignity too. Ooh.
yeah.
Another one, Joe Biden. He's right now undeclared. I personally don't think, um, he might. He has a lot of name recognition. Sorry, because he was former vice president. But as vice president, I really don't think he did a lot. Quote me if I'm wrong, but
I mean, the vice president does do a lot more than people think, but it's
yeah,
not enough to be notable that like he wasn't president. He was vice
yeah.
president.
Hmm.
So comparing, not as much, but he does do a lot compared to
Uh-huh.
other positions.
Another one, Elizabeth Warner. I thought she was really interesting. I think she was like one of the first to actually announce their candidacy, and a lot of her things are like taxing the rich and stuff like that. Her newest one was actually abolishing the electoral college. Uh, but for her, I personally really don't think she like compared to these other big players, I don't think she really has a chance because she just, a lot of her things are, she doesn't have the name recognition as Bernie Sanders does and stuff like that.
I mean, I like this one line from this. The 69-year-old Warren is a capitalist at heart. Capitalism is amazing. So I personally like that one line right here.
um, but yeah, I do like one thing I really found like that was actually came out a couple like at least like a month or two ago that she actually faked her Native American heritage to get in to become like to become a lawyer. She put that she was Native American on her bar certification, sorry, um so she could become a lawyer and stuff like that, which I thought was really interesting. That a lot of a lot of these people, saying white privilege and stuff like that. Why would a white person, lie about being white and become, Native American? when in reality she's like 1/1000th of a percent Native American.
Yeah, I personally think that shouldn't be a part of like when you're applying for a job, but in reality, I personally think it is.
Uh-huh.
So
Another one, Cory Booker. As a lot of people like to call him Spartacus, because during the Kavanaugh hearings, he was like, "I'm about to have a Spartacus moment," and he said something that was, totally unnecessary. And everybody also knew this, but you know. Oh my god, he's really funny. I like him.
yeah, so he's centering his agenda on federal marijuana like legalization. My God, can't read. And criminal justice reform. The marijuana legalization, I think, is I personally agree with it. I personally don't do marijuana. I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't do
Wow, you're
drugs.
not cool. You're not cool.
I guess. Um, but in a sense of that, if I'm going completely economical, I think legalizing all drugs would be amazing. I mean, that's another topic for another podcast. But just baseline, I think that's actually very good for the economy.
Yeah, I'd relatively agree with you. Like, not legalizing all drugs, but like,
Well,
but
we gotta start somewhere. But you know,
yeah, but with marijuana especially, I definitely feel like the U.S. government, if they really wanted to, we could make a lot. This could be a good revenue stream, and we could also decrease taxes with this. How the U.S. government could honestly grow their own marijuana, have the FDA regulate it and stuff like that, so each person actually knows the contents of that marijuana they're getting, so they don't have to worry that it's laced with some other drugs, and we just sell it for profit and we start decreasing debt, all this other stuff. We start paying for these, things that some of these other candidates want to do, like Elizabeth Warren free or low cost childcare, or Bernie Sanders with a tuition or free college, stuff like that.
yeah.
Next one, I thought, a lot of these people, don't really, stick out to me because a lot of like I follow politics a lot, and I personally don't know a lot of these people because they don't have that much name recognition, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like another one that was pretty interesting was Christine Gillibrand. She was pretty interesting. She was the woman that took over for Hillary Clinton when she became Secretary of State. She used to be Hillary Clinton actually used to be, I'm pretty sure, a senator of New York, and once she went to become Secretary of State, Christine Gillibrand, you know, became took her place, if you want to put it.
Yeah.
So a lot of her like policies is like with the Me Too movement, called out former President Bill Clinton, stuff like that.
She signed a pledge swearing off fossil fuel funds. Does that mean?
Oh.
What does that mean exactly? Fossil fuel funds.
I'd probably say, probably funding these oil industries and stuff like that. I'd probably say that, or even using fossil fuels in general.
Oh, yeah. She pledged money to have people stop using fossil fuels.
Okay, okay, yeah.
So with that, personally, yeah. I mean, fossil fuels it does harm the environment, but we can't just all right. Let's eliminate all like harmful things to the environment and instantly switch to renewable resources like solar panels and stuff like that.
Uh,
We need to try to work on the technology itself and then slowly transition into it because we've been using
Definitely.
fossil fuels for like years now, so it's
Mhm.
hard to just instantly transition, which I don't think a lot of people understand.
Yeah, because all this stuff, it's not an overnight thing. Because all these renewable sources, they do have their problems. Like, I always hear with these environmentalists, like, I'm sorry, Environmentalist Club. I'm sorry. That they want wind turbines and stuff like that. If you really care about the environment, you also have to think about with the wind turbines. Um, these wind turbines are killing hundreds of thousands of birds each year, and it's very bad. And these wind turbine companies that are putting them up, they're getting no repercussions for this. Like they're killing, you know, endangered and very close to becoming extinct birds, and they're having no fines put on them because these people want to go fossil fuelless.
Yeah.
Which I thought, you have to, think about the other side as well. And I don't really know, like personally, I don't really know how you could really stop that because you can't really stop a bird from running into a wind turbine,
I mean,
but
that's just nature. The birds shouldn't be hanging the wind turbine.
birds just need to fly lower, bro.
Yeah, they should be able to see it. I mean,
And I know with a lot of these people, they agree with the Green New Deal, which I thought was a very interesting piece of legislation. Uh, which just it could cost, I think, because AOC, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the House of Representatives, the representative that put this out, um, wanted to totally get rid of fossil fuels and stuff like that. And I think it was going to cost like $77 trillion. I think somewhere around there. It's like a lot of money. And when asked who's going to pay for this, she's just like But yeah.
yeah. Again, you just need to focus on the money.
Mhm. And with this whole climate change thing with the fossil fuels and stuff like that, that discussion's totally for another podcast, because I could go on. Me and Jordan, we could go on for hours on end.
Yeah.
All right, let's scroll down a little. Number 15, Andrew Yang. A lot of people, relatively, a lot of people, kind of know who he is. He has kind of like a cult following on social media and stuff like that, on like the not very used social media by I'm gonna say it, normal people like Reddit or 4chan and stuff like that. Those social media sites, like he has like a cult following, and many people say Yang Gang.
2020.
Yes, but I find one of his, big things, like his main thing, is a universal basic income, which was just basically, if you're like above 18 and you don't have a job, you get $1,000, I think, a month. I think.
I think it's a month. Um, I know my friend Brody. He's personally doing another English project. So me and Matt are doing a podcast, which we're doing right now. My friend Brody is doing a universal basic income project, which if we want to go into detail on like Andrew Yang in particular, because I know there's some people that I'm friends with that really like him. So like
Uh-huh.
we could get him on and we can just talk about like Andrew Yang, and then we can talk about two other topics in that podcast.
Yes, I just saw it. It is $1,000 per month, or $12,000 per year, which is not great. People should definitely not live off that, because I'd relatively say, what's it called? Minimum wages, I'm pretty sure, is better than that. I'll calculate it
Well,
right
it's
now.
it's
But
supposed to help you.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, no one should be living off that, definitely. But I just see it as, I kind of feel it. I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of people that are supporting Andrew Yang, like what I'm hearing from anyway, um, like from my work and stuff like that, I was talking to one of my friends at work, and he supported Andrew Yang, and I asked him, like, oh, did he support this, basic universal, income? And he said he did. And I was like, oh, why do you support it? He was like, yeah, dude, I want $1,000 a month. And I was like, oh, like, you just got out of high school. Do you plan on, like, going to college, going to like a trade and technical school, something like that? He was like, no. I was like, so, like, what I'm kind of getting from this is, like, people who, like, really don't want to do anything, like, just want free money. That's That's what I'm kind of seeing as like.
Well, on the other hand, even if they don't go to college, because like I think
Oh yes, oh
pushing
yes,
people to college it definitely will help. But if they don't go to college and they still, because there's no way they're living off $1,000,
oh
so
yeah.
they're still going to have a job. The job is going to contribute to the economy still, and with that $1,000 that they can spend, they can spend it on a new pair of shoes. They can put in the bank. All of these things will help the economy flow and increase GDP.
Uh-huh.
And
So wait.
and all,
So hold on.
uh,
Sorry, one second. It just says I'm just reading his website right now. Every U.S. citizen over the age of 18 would receive $1,000 a month, regardless of income or employment status. Free and clear. No jumping through hoops. Yes, this means you and everyone you know would receive a check for $1,000 a month starting in January 2021. So let's be real with this. He's saying that every person in the United States would get $1,000 a
that are
month
over the age of 18.
over the age 18. I kind of feel like for some people that's kind of ridiculous and it's unneeded. Like I'm sorry to say, but a really good heart surgeon, I don't think he needs $1,000 a month when compared to other people.
Well,
But
still with that, I mean, it's very expensive to become a doctor. That's why his salary is so high.
yeah, definitely, and he
So,
does great work. Like
yeah, exactly. So, in a sense, I think everyone should get the $1,000, but like that, would that $1,000 be taxed then on top of that each year from the taxes?
I'm not sure it says
Because
anything about that.
because if it is, then that's still that's I don't know the tax bracket of a doctor, but that $1,000 that is given, um, some of it will be put back through taxes, and on top of that, it will make the economy flow due to that. Again, with universal basic income, that's more of like we're going to be looking to the future, and that's how it's going to benefit, and it will pay for itself. That's basically what I'm gaining from.
Uh-huh. And I just I just really wonder, really like if we're talking anything about like how we're gonna afford some of these stuff, how are we gonna afford this? Like in all honesty, because he says that he's gonna use our plan for a universal basic income uses mostly money already in the economy. So are you gonna take funding from things? Are you gonna increase taxes on rich people? Like what's kind of happening over here? That's my only thing I'm
Yeah.
really
I
wondering
mean,
right
I
now.
feel like once he gets more like into more debates with other candidates of Democrats and Republicans, because I feel he's gonna go pretty far. He's
Uh,
probably gonna go in more detail with that because I feel like someone has to
Definitely.
ask.
Uh,
And I think one of the best things with Andrew Yang is that he wants to transition from, so we base our economy off of GDP, and then also the stock market.
uh-huh.
So he's trying to transition from that and base it off of factors of happiness of like, because we can see like, oh, the stock market is down, but that's not a great indicator on how the economy is doing. We can
Uh-huh.
base it off of like, are you happy? You know, based off of many a variety of things,
Uh-huh.
which I think is very, very cool that he wants to transition from.
I thought that was yeah, that's interesting too. Another interesting thing that I really have been looking at is that he wants to his plan with lowering college tuition, unlike Bernie Sanders, one of his opponents, where he just wants to make it free and stuff like that, and have the government pay for everything. He wants to, go to these colleges and say, hey, we've seen that you've had really no, drastic change in your education level, like you're not giving a better education than you were 20 years ago, but we see that your administration costs, sorry, have increased dramatically. Like you have an advisor for an advisor to an advisor about this certain thing. Like, and his plan was to, go to these colleges and say, hey, if you do not, lower your, all these administration fees, sorry, we're going to cut your funding, or we're going to drastically lower it.
Yeah, which I think would be pretty interesting.
But yeah, all the other candidates, a lot of the other ones,
W-
not really known as much.
Yeah, we talked about the basically the main ones.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty, you have anything else?
So I feel like we can just end it off here. So I'm probably gonna upload this to YouTube. By the way, this is we do this live. I don't look at chat while I do this. And I do it on Twitch. So if you find it on YouTube, everything will be like probably in the description, stuff like that. If you want to look at more, if you're interested in becoming like a guest on the podcast, um, you can go to the Twitch chat and do exclamation point Discord, and then
Uh,
that will send you to our server, and then you can ask questions if you want certain topics to be talked about, or if you just want to be on here, you can do all of that in the Discord server.
because we're definitely, willing to, debate anybody. Honestly, not even a debate, discuss with anybody. Like it's not going to be like a 2-on-1,
Yeah,
because I definitely say, Jordan and I, we don't, we fundamentally agree on things, but like when we get to the nitty gritty stuff, we don't agree on a sizable amount of things, and you know, we just trying to make it so if you come on and you like have a different opinion than both of us, we're not gonna try to, make it so you feel like, oh God, I am scared.
yeah. So that's why I just wanted to leave off on that note. So I don't know how often we're gonna do these. We were planning on doing this like a while ago, like I don't know, January maybe. But we just never like fully did it. And then now we had this like English project that I was like, oh, we can do a podcast. Let's just do it. Let's just dive right in. And that was the main reason we did a podcast. And I think,
I'd definitely say we're trying to, with guests, we're trying to get some, we might be trying to get some teachers on. I don't know, Mr. Bear. I don't know, Miss Weaver. I don't know.
oh yeah, well, we'll just have to
The
figure it out.
options are unlimited.
So we're just gonna end that here, and all right, peace out, guys.
All right, peace.